So now we're going to start to talk about some of the visual changes and some of the changes that can happen with the inner ear with each one of those Parkinsonian disorders. I will try to make this as interesting as possible. Some of this material is a little bit dry, so just stick with me as best you can. Okay, so we're going to start by reviewing all the oculomotor and vestibular changes that happen with each disorder. We're going to talk about the role of the vestibular therapist, what we can do about those things, and then we'll also review some basic exercises that you guys could get started on your own to try to help with some of those ocular changes specifically. Okay, so to kind of break it down for each eye movement that we're going to discuss today, smooth pursuits, that's something that basically helps me track a moving object. So hopefully you guys can see the little video clip up at the top up here. So this person has an image that's moving side to side in front of them, and you can tell that they're able to keep their eyes on that image based on that movement. Okay, saccades, or sometimes you'll hear it called saccades depending on who you're talking to, is a quick eye movement that's going to bring something from my peripheral vision into my central or foveal vision. So again, this one's a little harder to see, but again, she's got two targets out in front of her, and she's just bringing her eyes back and forth from one target to the other. And then convergence. This last one, this is basically going to help me bring my vision from something that's distant to something that's a little closer to me. Okay, so convergence is bringing both eyes in together to be able to focus on that close target. Now this girl at the bottom is kind of goofy, but you can kind of see that inward and outward motion that is convergence, and then divergence is bringing the eyes away. Okay, hopefully these videos will work. If they don't, it's okay. So let's talk about some of the functions of the inner ear system. So the main one is angular VOR, or gaze stability. Basically, this is a role of a part of the inner ear called the semicircular canals that helps me to understand rotation types of movements. So anytime I turn my head side to side or nod my head up and down, the actual reflex, vestibular ocular reflex, helps me keep my eyes on a target as I'm doing that movement. Okay. Then we have the linear VOR. So this is a function of what's called the otolith organs. It's a different part of the inner ear that basically helps process linear movement. So if I'm walking along on a sidewalk or if I'm riding in an elevator, that's the role of the otolith organs. Again, the VOR portion of that helps me keep my vision stable as I'm moving through those types of environments. Let's see. Okay, looks like our videos are not going to work, but that's okay. So we're going to start off with true Parkinsonism, just going through some of the oculomotor changes that occur here. So we can get impaired smooth pursuits. So as I'm trying to maybe watch my dog or cat run across the room, it might be a little bit blurry, it might be a little bit jumpy at times. There can be convergence insufficiency. So this means if I'm trying to read the paper and I'm pulling it up closer to me, again, maybe it might be blurry, maybe it might even be double at times if I have a true convergence insufficiency. And then there's going to be impaired saccades. So remember, saccades are those quick movements back and forth. So if somebody's making noise back here behind me, I might have a hard time getting my eyes back quick enough to react to whatever's going on there. Okay. So within impaired saccades, they can be hypometric, meaning that if I want to look, say, like over here at the window, it might take me a couple different movements to get my eyes over there rather than one quick and rapid movement. They might be delayed. So again, if I have that noise behind me, it might take my body to react, a little bit of time to react to get my eyes over there. They might actually be a slow movement. So instead of my eyes are here and my eyes are here, it might look like I'm actually kind of pursuing something to get my eyes to change positions. And then there might also be a reduced reflexive saccade. So again, if I'm reacting to something that's a reflexive saccade, those might be reduced or slowed. Some other changes that can happen with the eyes are something called blepharospasm, which is like an eyelid twitching. Sometimes it can be a really forceful movement. I can get reduced blink rate. And then apraxia of lid opening, which means that maybe if I do get one of those really strong contractions of my eyelid, I might have a hard time opening my eyes up again. And then if we talk about just the vestibular system itself, we can get otolith dysfunction, which this is going to cause me, if you remember, the otoliths are kind of responsible for that linear translation, either forward or up and down. If I have dysfunction in that part of the inner ear system, I might have a hard time reacting to changes in my head positioning. So if my head starts to slowly droop down, if my otoliths aren't telling me that, then I might have a hard time generating a body response to help correct that. I'm going to have impaired vestibular processing in general, and then impaired subjective vertical. So where this kind of comes into play, if any of you guys have heard of Pisa syndrome, which is something that happens where I start to posturally align my body to the side, just like the Leaning Tower of Pisa, it's because their subjective vertical is impaired. They think that vertical is over here, so naturally I'm going to align my body to try to get vertical. If we look at PSP, progressive supranuclear palsy, some of the changes that can occur here, again, slow saccades, right? That quick movement's going to be a little bit slowed. I'm going to have impaired vertical gaze, and that might include pursuits and saccades. So I'm going to have a hard time bringing my eyes in any type of vertical direction. The vestibular impairments that could be involved, again, otolith dysfunction, specifically the saccule. So the saccule is the part that handles our up and down, the elevator types of movements. That does contribute to some of the postural instability that's associated with PSP. We're going to have impaired angular VOR. So if we remember back to the angular VOR is what helps me keep my eyes on a target when my head's in motion. That usually happens later in the disease. And then an overactive vestibular colic reflex. So this is a reflex that connects my inner ear system to my neck. So essentially, if my inner ear system gets stimulated to the right, the vestibular colic reflex is going to tighten up some of the muscles on the left side of my neck. And if that's overactive, I'm going to end up actually turning my head opposite of where I want to look. Okay. Then if we go into multiple systems atrophy, again, impaired pursuits, I'm going to have a hard time following my pet that's running around. Hypometric saccades, meaning that it might take me a couple different jumps to get my eyes from one place to another. And then the vestibular function kind of varies whether the person has more of a Parkinsonian subset of MSA or the cerebellar subset. So with the cerebellar subset, we're looking at otolith dysfunction again, thinking about that translatory movement, and then impaired VOR suppression. So what this means is that, if I'm turning my head and I want to look over here to the windows, but I started out looking over here, I might have a hard time removing my eyes from that original target to get over here. Okay. So again, you could see where that would be problematic if I'm trying to turn and bring my eyes along with me. Okay, for CBD, corticobasilar degeneration or syndrome, things that are going to be involved here, impaired smooth pursuits, increased saccadic latency, meaning that it's going to be a little delayed. If I hear something crash behind me, it might take me a few seconds to kind of process that and be able to move my eyes. More common to have blepharospasm, or there's eyelid twitching, and then that problem with opening the eyelids again. Okay, for the other types of dementia, so for frontotemporal dementia, we're looking at impaired inhibition of reflexive saccades. It's a lot of words. Okay, so picture that I'm having a conversation with you and there's a dog barking beside me. I might have a hard time paying attention and keeping my eyes on you. My eyes are going to constantly wanting to be flicking over to that dog that's barking. And again, that has to do more with the frontal lobe involvement. There's going to be early saccades and then impaired visual suppression of the VOR. So again, if I want to turn my eyes with my head, I might have a hard time getting my eyes to move with me. And then for dementia with Lewy bodies, impaired reflexive saccades and impaired complex saccade performance. So you can think about that as like reading the newspaper. Anytime I'm reading, it's all a series of saccades that are bringing my eyes from one word to the next. Okay, so for the vestibular therapist, basically our role is going to be to try to find out which of these issues the person's actually experiencing. And the way that we do that is to do an oculomotor exam. So we're not actually doing a visual exam where you're sitting in front of an eye chart and trying to read it, but we're trying to look at the quality of the motions of all of these movements of the eye. So how do you do with your convergence? How are you able to track objects? How quickly are you able to bring your eyes back and forth? The other piece of that is doing a vestibular exam, so trying to really break down the components of what our inner ear does for us and how it maintains our head position, and trying to identify which one of those things the person's having difficulty with. Our primary goal is to then try to provide some exercises that you can work on at home to try to help address those areas, and then also incorporate all those deficits into ways that we can do more unstructured tasks. So if we think back to salience and trying to do stuff that's important to you, maybe instead of Bobby really likes dancing, but maybe I really like golf, and I want to work on my eyes in relationship to that. An example that I've used for the patient that passed is we put up a chart in front of them that's got a bunch of different numbers, and each number has a colored background to it. And I say number 3, and that's sitting on a blue target. They're going to put their ball to wherever I've placed a blue target in the room. So that's a way that we can kind of incorporate some of that visual training into something that's more functional for that person. Okay, so now we're going to get into some specific exercises that you guys could actually start off with at home. So for smooth pursuits, this is perhaps the easiest one to do. So if you guys have laser pointers at home, you can have a family member or a friend just shine the laser pointer back and forth, side to side, up and down. They can write out some letters and write out a message to you, and basically you're just going to trace that movement of the light with your eyes. A more basic way to work on that is to do the same thing with a pen or pencil. When you're sitting in the car, you can track the road signs as they're kind of passing by you, stoplights, anything else that you see that's passing in the car. There's 2 websites down here, icanlearn.com and it's EYE. That's a great website. It's meant more towards pediatrics, so you're going to see a lot of childlike exercises on there. You know, can you watch the bug as it jumps around on the page? Can you watch the bunny rabbit as it jumps? But it's a good basic way and a free way that you can just have another way to work on these types of movements. And then simply if you just search on YouTube, you know, type in smooth pursuits exercise, and there's going to be some things that will pop up there. There's also a number of applications for tablets that you can download as well. For saccades, the most basic way to do this, I like to use Post-it notes. Guys, if you ever walk into my room where I work, there's Post-it notes everywhere. So the most basic way, put 4 Post-it notes on a wall and make a square. You're going to jump your eyes side to side, up and down and diagonally, going between the letters on the Post-it note. Again, for I Can Learn, there's a little clip that's going on right now. This is the bug jumps exercise, where again, you're just trying to jump your eyes to the bug wherever it moves around. Same as before, you can search YouTube, and you can also download some applications for your tablets. And then for convergence, so the easiest way to work on this one, start with something out in front of you, keep your eyes on it, you're going to pull it in closer to your face until it starts to look like it's doubling, and then you'll try to refocus and bring it back away. You can do the same thing holding something lengthwise here and just try to jump from end to end. Or you can, if you want to make this more of a dynamic exercise, I can pick, say, the thermostat on the wall over here, and I'm going to keep my eyes on it, walk as close as I can to it without it becoming double, and then back up away if I'm able to, or turn around and try it again. Okay. Some applications for tablets, there's a good list up here of just some things to try. Some of these are free, some of them are paid applications if you're, you know, really gung-ho about having something on there. A lot of these are really structured eye exercises. It does not have to be that boring or rigorous, okay? You guys, if you really like playing Candy Crush, if that's really important to you, that's also a good way that you can practice doing some of your eye exercises. Tetris, you know, there's a lot of different things that you can find that will generate a lot of those eye movements that you're looking to improve. Now you guys notice we did not talk a lot about vestibular exercises or dizzy exercises that you can work on, and I feel like that's because you can really be doing the wrong thing for a long time and it not be helping you. So I would really recommend, if you're having some problems with dizziness, to try to get in with a vestibular therapist, get an evaluation. That way they can try to really specifically hone in on what are the types of things that are making you dizzy, what are the types of movements that are provoking it, and really give you something that's more specified to you. There's a ton of exercises that you could be doing, all or none of which might be helpful to you. So it's better to get something that's more specifically geared so that you're not wasting your precious time on doing things that might not be helpful. Okay? Thank you guys so much.